Is it true you can't get a DUI on a horse?
That is so far from the truth. That is so far from the truth. Please, guys, do not drink and drive, and do not drink and ride. It is just as illegal. Horses.
It's got a mind of its own.
Nah.
I didn't tell it to go start moving. I just hopped on and started drinking.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't listen to this guy. Don't do it.
You can trust me. I have a cowboy hat on. I haven't been doing intros. Like when I started this thing, like I would create like a whole intro where I like talk about the guests and whatnot. But
right.
with like YouTube and whatnot and like the tiny attention span, I'm just kind of getting right into it. So with that being said, the busiest man in Acadiana is here, Drake LeBlanc. First off, Drake, thanks for being here. And
thank you for having me, man.
How do you like my hat?
I love it, bro. It's cowboy as fuck. I saw the belt too.
Yeah, you saw that?
Yeah. I was like, I peeped. I was like, all right. He got the memo.
It's kind of stolen valor, man, from Covington. But yeah, we got some farmer or cowboys and farmers in Covington. Probably not like the type of cowboys that you see in your new documentary, Footwork.
Yep, it's called Footwork. Newest documentary out.
Just about 15 minutes long, easy watch, but pretty powerful. And obviously, your eye is like one to envy. I love your camera skills and your storytelling. It's been cool kind of seeing some of your work from when I first got put on you to this whole thing. So just tell folks real quick what it's all about.
So Footwork is, I always introduce it as not even really a film. I say it's a project because being that I put so much time into the film. And the 15-minute version of it that exists now is not its final resting place. So currently I have like a photo exhibit series that's being put up in conjunction with the film. But it's an abstract portrait about Black and Creole Cowboys in Louisiana. Because when you hear about the American cowboy, when you Google the American cowboy, it isn't people that look like me that pop up.
It's like John Wayne.
Right, exactly.
Or Yellowstone.
And they're always well-groomed, which is amazing to me. And I'm like, I don't know too many. I mean, not to say that cowboys can't clean up, but usually when you see them, they ain't, they're working.
Yeah, they're working.
So I really just wanted to, in the most positive way possible, but still, being positive, but without hiding any truth to the American cowboy story. I wanted to highlight the importance of and the role that Black and Creole people, and specifically Louisiana people, play in that whole narrative of like what an American cowboy is, and kind of tease where they came from a little bit. And like I said, it's a project. It's going to live on past this short film. So Footwork, the film as it is right now, is literally just a first step, to opening up that door, and also to a conversation started, to start the conversation of like, I can't tell you how many people outside of Louisiana were like, two things. They were like, there's cowboys in Louisiana. Which I'm like, that's kind of crazy. Like,
it's one of those rural states.
Right. But then the second thing.
We all riding alligators?
Right. Yeah. They think, some guy with a, camouflage and duck boots and a rope on an alligator. But
shoot him.
Right. But the other thing was, they definitely had no idea that there were Black cowboys anywhere in America. It's just like unheard of to them. So there's a lot of history to uncover there. And like I said, I wanted to get the conversation started. And, like they say, I got some more in the chamber. I got another one in the chamber, so I'm ready.
Yeah, man, it was a really great watch. Definitely left me wanting more though. So that's exciting that it's kind of a continuation, going to keep building and building. And right now, by the time this comes out in a couple weeks, it's not out yet for the general public because you're on the film circuit. But when do you think folks should be on the lookout for it, the general public?
Well, while it's on the film festival circuit right now, it is pretty accessible because I post as much of the film or all the film festivals that it gets accepted in. And it's 2024 going into 25. So every film festival is also showing it virtually. So Footwork had its world premiere at Black Star, which is a really big film festival in Philadelphia. But, it was also available to watch online during that time, too. So,
Yeah.
as it lives
you can
out,
go in person. There's also a virtual
yeah,
option.
yeah. So like as it lives out the rest of its film festival circuit life, people can follow me on social media and find out how they can stream it during these next few months, and then I think it'll become available publicly maybe like Q2, Q3 of 2025.
Okay, businessman, Q2, Q3.
It's the only way my brain functions. Don't know what day of the week it is, but I know what quarter we in.
I think it's Wednesday. Not so sure though myself. But I want to get into. I'm really fascinated about this Creole cowboy culture, but just let's get the plugs out the way. How can people follow you and keep track of it on social media?
Drake LeBlanc, Facebook, same thing on Instagram. My @ handles change, but if you Google Drake LeBlanc, it'll come up. And then Télé-Louisiane, which is my media company, my French media company. That is like the functioning production company for the film. So all updates will either be on my personal social media, which is all like public, and then also Télé-Louisiane, the website, the Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter, all updates on both of those platforms at all times.
So answer me this. How much like riding experience or like trail rides did you grow up going on, or like what made you get into this topic and really sink your teeth in it?
Yeah, so I definitely I didn't grow up as a rider. I grew up riding, but I would never say that I grew up as a rider because there was never a horse at my house until I became an adult. But I had very close cousins and uncles and family members and neighbors I would ride, and my people are from Ridge, so a lot of people, if you don't know about the big old town of Ridge, you could go to the corner store and see somebody like go and get their cold pop and they pack of cigarettes like on their horse.
That's awesome.
It's very much in the middle of like sugar cane and rice fields and all that. So I always grew up surrounded by the culture. It was kind of like one of the things me and my dad did a lot. We would go to the trail rides like with my cousins. Like my dad was kind of like the favorite uncle or whatever, so he would like take me and all my cousins and all the neighbors' kids or whatever, and we would go to trail rides. Like, so when I get back to school on Monday, people be talking about like their awesome time at like the bowling alley and the skate rink, and I'm like, they were like, well, what did you do, Drake? And I'm like, well, we went and get like dusty as hell and like, went in some big field somewhere where like Keith Frank and Jay Paul and all these other cats were playing live music while people were just riding around on their horses and cutting up on their four-wheelers. So like that was like our weekend pastime. Even if we didn't have horses, it was like all of our friends were there, and we'd go cook, we'd go listen to the music, dance to the music or whatever. So definitely grew up in that environment, and I've always wanted to tell that story because I knew that it wasn't getting the spotlight that it deserved. And but one of my goals as an adult, I was like, man, as soon as I have the resources, like I'm getting a horse, because like there's nothing I love more than being in a saddle. And then once I got my horse, every time I go to the ride, I'd be like, man, I really should be filming this. Like, this is amazing. I'm building this media company like during this time. But I couldn't trade. I'm like, I need to be in a saddle. Like, I want to go, enjoy a cold beer and like, just go on a ride. And, like.
Is it true you can't get a DUI on a horse?
That is so far from the truth. That is so far from the truth. Please, guys, do not drink and drive, and do not drink and ride. It is just as illegal. Horses.
It's got a mind of its own.
Nah.
I didn't tell it to start moving. I just hopped on and started drinking.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't listen to this guy. Don't do it.
You trust me. I have a cowboy hat on.
Yeah, it's definitely horses in most of the states are legal transportation, but you do have to abide by all of the same rules as if you were operating a motorized vehicle. So.
Well, I know you did like the French immersion stuff growing up, and are you completely fluent in French?
Yeah, I'm completely fluent in French. I'm learning Louisiana Creole, but yeah, completely fluent in French. Was in a French immersion program like all of my life. So.
Then you host like a radio show at KRVS like right after high school, and was it in French?
Yeah, so I did the Franco mix on KRVS. Wheat Point Set, c'est formidable. That was my little thing. Yeah, I got that gig right out of high school from this lady named Val, who's a good friend of mine and moved away. She passed the show on to me, and I was just like the young French immersion kid. I was already like DJing and stuff, because I was playing a lot of music at the time, and I was like DJing like homecoming parties, so people just knew I had experience with audio, visual,
sound,
tech, whatever. And it was like, this guy, he speaks French, like give him a radio show. And I ran with it for, as long as I could, and had a great time. I'm still really good friends with everybody at KRVS and love that show and the station as well. So.
Yeah. So what I love about you is that you love where you're from and you're not afraid to show it and work to maintain or revitalize wherever it is the culture, the zeitgeist of this area that you love so much and the people that represent it. And so which is part of why you started Télé-Louisiane.
Yeah.
Is it Louisiana's first French media company or?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be
like
hard,
all French broadcast.
Yeah, it'd be hard to argue differently. I mean, the state of Louisiana has had French programming scattered throughout, like over the decades.
Like KLFY used to have a broadcast in French.
That I didn't even know.
Maybe
I knew LPB is pretty much
one of the TV stations. I think they did, but
yeah. But I know LPB has pretty much like maintained French broadcasting as much as they were capable of, like throughout the decades. But as far as like first private company, like doing full-fledged French media and marketing services, like I study that for a living and I have not found one that, has done that before us,
That's so cool. So through all that, you go on this kind of adventure to learn more about the Creole Cowboys. Did you get the horse before or after the documentary?
I got the horse before.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the horse before. And again, always had it as an idea in my head that I would do this documentary. But yeah, I was riding.
What's something that you learned through this experience that you were surprised to discover or excited to learn more about?
Selfishly, I learned a lot about horsemanship and cowboys and just like, a lot of the people that are in the film and like in this work that I'm doing specifically centered around Creole Cowboys are people that I already knew or, like they're in my close circle, even if they aren't people that I knew directly, like they're friends of my friends or like, that one girl that I always dance with at the Zydeco, it's like, her grandfather or her uncle, So I was familiar with a lot of those stories and a lot of those sentiments that existed in Creole cowboy culture and just in our history and like where we currently are as a Creole culture, because this is the same culture that I actively participate and socialize in when I'm not on the clock. Like that's where I'm at. I'm at a trail ride. I'm at a Zydeco show. Like that's what
Bro, I've seen so many videos and you in person like two-stepping with like beautiful women. I'm like, this dude, like, when did you first learn a two-step?
Man, nobody believes me when I say this. I started dancing pretty much like after the quarantine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
Like my first time going out as an adult and be like, okay, like I'm a like, knock the dust off these boots and like actually try to learn how to dance was like the week before everything shut down.
Oh, wow. How'd you learn?
Just going out dancing.
Yeah.
Because I was going out so much, just like networking and doing work for Télé-Lou, and I knew the music, right? Like I grew up around the music.
And you're a musician. So you've got the feel and the groove.
Yeah. But I was like, I really need to like learn the different steps and like learn how to dance with a partner. As my dad always told me, my dad's a wise man. He said, if you want to get you a Southern woman, you need to know how to cook and you need to know how to dance. He's like, if you can do those two things, you could be broke, you could be ugly, you could be, you could be anything else. But he's like, if you could cook and you can dance, you got it.
I want to find someone to bring on the show to teach me on the show how to dance.
Yeah, bro. I
might have to go to their studio or something and make it more like less podcasty, more like a YouTube travel show type thing. But
dude, it's a beautiful thing, man. I've met some of the most amazing people on the dance floor, and it's always like I've had dance partners that I've been dancing with them like 4 years for like 2 or 3 years. And then like in year 3, I find out that they're like a professor or a doctor or a surgeon or like something crazy. And I'm like, what? Like, no way. Like, so it's really fun, man. I love it. It's one of my favorite parts about our culture. And I love how it's shared across the different like subcultures of Louisiana too. Like Cajuns have, their style of dancing, Creoles have their style of dancing. And then, we got like these East Coast Zodi hippies, we call them, which we love them.
Yeah.
Like, they come down, they just love the music, they love everything about it, and they have their style of dancing.
Zodi hippies, I love that. Yeah, and I heard someone say once that like they were, because I just grew up with it, so I never like put 2 and 2 together, but like in other places around the country, like any sort of dancing is usually started by the women, but so many men down here are the ones who are initiating the dancing. But also you could see that in like a Texas club or something like that, right. Texas swing. But my dad, I think, got my mom on the dance floor.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely like.
And if I mess that up, mom and dad, like, sorry.
Yeah,
I wasn't there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a thing. It's like the whole like. You know, it's kind of like this. It's, you know, metaphorically, but also literally like the dance of like, you know, finding like who do you want to dance with. You don't know how if they dance good or bad yet. Like you don't even know, and it's like figuring that out. And you know, it's fun, man.
So back to the Creole Cowboys. What constitutes a cowboy?
Well,
And are there any truly left in the, I guess, traditional sense?
yeah, there's definitely a bunch of cowboys left in a traditional sense. I mean, not a bunch relatively to what there used to be, but I personally know a lot of people that still work the land, work the animals, whether they do it from horseback or not, but, you know, farming, working livestock and all this other stuff, as far as like in a traditional definition of what a cowboy is. But it really depends on who you ask, man. It depends on who you ask, like what their definition of a cowboy is. You know, some people just think it's, you know, if you dress a certain way, like, you know, they think it's a culture that you could easily, you know, just put on like a jacket or a shirt or a hat, right? Which is fair. It's fair to, you know, it's fair to assume that, and it's fair to accept that if that works for like that person and their lifestyle. For me personally, I think the way there's some people in my life that I would call cowboys that they themselves don't label themselves as cowboys. Like even some people like in the film, right? Which I'm not gonna call them out, but like some people in the film like wouldn't even call themselves a cowboy. But I think it's it's based upon values, moral character, and like, you know, I feel like if you can do some pretty demanding, hard, intensive labor outside, and that's what you do to make ends meet and, you know, take care of your family, and there just happen to be a horse or a cow or a pig or somewhere, right? Like, you know, I'd call you a cowboy, you know, and the boots and the hat and the belt is a plus, but, you know.
I gotcha. What I didn't realize, and this is, you know, just my ignorance, but I didn't realize that, you know, Louisiana Creole, language-wise, was different than Louisiana French.
Yeah.
Or Cajun French, or whatever we're calling it these days.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that's you know, same situation as like with cowboy. Like it depends on who you ask, right? Because me and my colleagues and everybody in my workplace involved in like the French language, we try our best to use Louisiana French. This is gonna bother some people, but we try to use Louisiana French as the most diverse, all-encompassing. Hey, we're not shunning Cajun French, or we're not shunning Louisiana Creole, or saying, you know, but we're saying all of this is some version of Louisiana French, because now we're 3 generations into like kids like me that are immersion kids. My family speaks Louisiana Creole, like my grandfather and his siblings, like they speak Louisiana Creole, like Kurivini. That was their first language, right? But that's not what I speak, though. So even though I'm a Creole man, like I identify as Louisiana Creole, I learned my French in school with French teachers from Canada, Belgium, France, Africa, South Louisiana, and everything in between.
Modern French.
Which is also getting mixed with some of the French words that my grandfather would speak, or that my uncles would speak, or my aunts would speak, right? So Louisiana French is kind of like, again, me and my colleagues' most politically correct term that we use. But I think Cajun French is probably more of a choice of vocabulary, and Louisiana Creole is like it's literally academically scientific. It's like a different language. It has different structure, you know, way different writings. You know, it's different.
Yeah, man. I mean, you've seen. We talked about this several months ago, but after the Dr. Barry Onsele episode came out, one of those clips, you know, did some Louisiana numbies, and then all of a sudden I've got like some guy who I can't remember like the broadcast, but he some sort of Creole YouTube creator or video creator or something, like citing the episode from like maybe the Jordan episode or the Dr. Barry Onsele episode. So you have thoughts on that.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to just ascertain or figure out is like, what is it about those videos that I've been able to capture, some of these conversations, some of these staunch or hard takes about Louisiana? What is it that just gets people like arguing and like,
yeah, well, that's probably
back
like
and forth?
That's probably the easiest question to answer out of all of them about that topic of like, you know, Creole versus Cajun, and the difference in the language and the difference in the culture is that all of these people, regardless of what they identify as, if they're actually Cajun, if they're actually Creole, or of that ancestry somehow, some shape or form. Somewhere on the timeline, they were oppressed. Somewhere on the timeline, they were oppressed, and they had extreme hardships and extreme difficulties, like making ends meet and like feeding themselves and taking care of their family. Like somewhere on the timeline, regardless of how you identify, you know, unless you're just like straight up pure European or like white American, les Américains, like you had hardships, you know. And that's one of the things that makes Louisiana really beautiful and unique, is that a lot of those communities were getting along and collaborating and like making things happen, and, you know, collaborating with the Native Americans and the Indians, and, you know, sharing culture and sharing traditions, and, you know, sharing religions, and also sharing recipes, right, and sharing music. But then you have these other moments in time, you know, like with the Jim Crow era and desegregation and all that, that like started to undo a lot of that good groundwork that was done. And everybody remembers that. Most people remember that, but they remember it in very different ways. And if they weren't alive during that time, they were taught it in very different ways, because of at whatever it was in that day and age, their ancestors were doing whatever they had to do to survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you identify with the lowest of low minority, which would be black, and then, you know, depending on what side of the river you were on, if it wasn't a Creole ran area or region, you know, it's like Creole wasn't that, you know, being Creole wasn't that hot either. So if I'm somebody that's super, super light, even though I'm Creole, I may choose to identify as Cajun if it means I can get this, crazy amount of land, you know, donated to me, you know, to start my farm, you know, from this guy or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody was doing what they had to do to survive, but also a lot of people were trying to avoid shame, and that exists on all sides of the rainbow, so to say, you know.
So through those stories passed down family lines and whatnot, you know, with people are, I guess to answer the question, people are super passionate about this because their family went through this struggle, and they have the way they were taught, or they had, whether it's like in school or, you know, by their parents, and, you know, I guess that's like their truth.
Yeah, it's their truth. And another thing I try to remind people of is that, because I get asked this question a lot, and I try my best to be neutral, just because of my position in the workplace and politics and all that. But, you know, it's like, hey, like if, let's say, quote on, you know, this is theoretical, but like, let's say my late grandmother said, hey, like, we're this is our culture, this is what, you know, she didn't say this is what we identify as. She said, like, hey, this is what we are.
Yeah.
This is what you fill out on the census. This is what, you know, if they ask you what you are in school, you say this. I'm not going to question her as to why. I'm not going to question her as a child to, you know, assume anything different. And so that when you fast forward, you know, 50 to 100 years later, and when this era of like technology and immediately an excessive amount of immediately accessible information, where people are trying to learn more and they have the tools to learn a lot quicker than what we did just 2 generations back, people are challenging things that never once had to be challenged. They never even once had to be challenged, right? There was never an opportunity to challenge them. And who am I to go tell this person, like, hey, I know you think that you're Cajun, but actually you really are Creole because X, Y, Z, and a third. But who am I to tell them that if it's their late grandmother that told them or taught them that they're Cajun in the first place, and like all this other stuff? Mm-hmm. And their grandmother ain't here to defend herself no more. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
dude, when I was working for the news station, I can never remember the man's name, but he, I think he's an attorney in town, and he got like the Queen of England at some point to apologize on behalf of the Cajuns. I forget the man's name,
story. Yeah.
But you know, I'm telling him, well, he was like, Semino, huh? I was like, yeah, I'm super fascinated about, you know, this Cajun culture, you know, parents, my dad's side, they're Cajun. He's like, well, no, you're Semino. You guys came from France.
Yeah.
But like not from Acadie.
Right.
And I was like, so I'm not Cajun? He was like, no. I was like, oh, damn. Well,
yeah.
But it was like a whole thing, just like a glass shattering moment. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not this thing that I grew up being taught that I am.
Right. And so, and just to point that back to like when you ask me like, you know, what do I define as a cowboy? Or like, you know, what's the definition of a cowboy? It's the same thing, right? Because, you know, it's like, okay, like, yeah, your dad may not have came from Acadie, but that was only a small group of people that came down from Acadie anyway. It was like I think I always quote this number wrong. It's somewhere between 8,000 and 15,000. Whatever it was like a small amount of people compared to the amount of people, the amount of French speakers, the amount of people that were already here in Louisiana surviving already before the Acadians came down, right? So it's like the chances of you being a direct descendant of that is like probable because of where we are geographically, but like numerically, statistically, is like not that. It's a small group of people, right? But the culture that you learned, that you taught, that fed you, the culture that fed you, the culture that groomed you, the culture that, you know, educated you and nurtured you is probably very much Cajun, just as much as it's probably very Creole.
So in your opinion, what is Cajun?
There's no, for me, there's no.
He's being such a politician.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to gotcha.
Nah. Here's the part that, like, for me, there's no opinion. Like, Cajun.
Like, is it that, like, I've heard people have the take, like, does your family have Acadie ancestry? If not, no. But to your point, saying, like, well, it's part of this culture that has been passed down several generations. In that case, then you are, if you identify as such. But I don't know.
But you know, and I'm an oddball case because, ironically enough, my Black grandmother is from Nova Scotia. She's my late grandmother. She was an immigrant from Nova Scotia. She's a Black woman, didn't speak French, and she's actually of Maroon descent, and that's how, like, they ended up in Canada. But it's like, I could argue, you know, I have a grandmother from Acadie. Like,
yeah, right.
I don't know too many people my age in Louisiana that can say that, you know. But yeah, I think what I know to be Cajun, I know that it is this cultural marker, and I guess you would call it an ethnic marker too, right? Because there's this group of people that came from a very specific geographical location in a certain time frame that later got marketed and termed into a more widespread cultural Band-Aid. I don't know.
If I see like one more fast food restaurant that has like Cajun seasoning or Cajun rice or something like that, it's like, what is that?
Yeah. And it's like, you know, things change. Just like if you look at the history of any word, any popular word, it changes over time.
Sure.
And I'm like, bruh, I go to Acadie like at least once a year. There is no spice. There's no seasoning up there. There's no cayenne. They don't even know what smoked paprika is. Like, it's like, what are we talking about? Like, is that really Cajun? You know what I mean? But the reality of it is that all of those spices and all those things is a mix of, Black influence, Creole influence, Native American influence, Spanish influence, not to mention sausage is like extremely German. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like all these different things that make up what, our Louisiana culture is today. And I think that at a few different moments in time, like there an extreme separation between what Cajun is and what Creole is. Like an extreme separation like developed. And I feel like it was developed on like not the best grounding and foundation because it very quickly became color-based or became, I don't even know, because again, it depends on who you ask. I was literally arguing with somebody on Threads about this like 2 days ago.
Really?
Because she was like, there's definitely like nobody that thinks Creole and Cajun is separated by color. And I was like,
girl.
I ain't saying that they right, but like if you're going to say like, come on, like,
people don't have that take.
You think people don't have that take? Like And but again, that's like her truth, right? And I have no idea what her ancestry is, and I have no idea like where she comes from, and I'm not trying to take away from it. So I'm just like, look, bro, can we all agree we all from Louisiana? Yeah. It's all Louisiana. Like I don't know what to tell you,
As with those kind of that racial lines that were put in the sand, years ago when this whole Cajun term started getting marketed out to the mass public. As a Louisiana Creole, does it piss you off at times when you see things that come from your ancestry that are being labeled as this cookie cutter term?
It's frustrating, but my people, and when I say my people, I mean like Creole people and Black people of Louisiana, we've been frustrated long enough. Black people in America have been frustrated long enough, like,
sure.
And so my thing is that I could take that same energy that would just make me like outcry and be upset about it and like do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I own a media platform that reaches 10 million people a year. And, you know, it's scary to think about, but like I have some sort of influence over what those people digest, you know, on a day-to-day basis and how they digest it. I have some sort of influence over how they digest, you know, the word Creole, the word Cajun, what Zydeco is, what type of dancing is considered what type of food is considered what, and all this. If they're on my platform, right? But there's a large group of people on the platform, and not to mention the other companies and entities that I work with or that I consult for, you know, in that same space and capacity. And so it's like I put my energy towards that. So like, yes, it is frustrating, and sometimes, you know, it can be a little bit discouraging because it's like, damn, like you think because information is so readily available, people would know better. But it's like we're also fighting centuries of misinformation and, you know, extremely biased information and extremely biased media. So I'm just trying to like do my part and like, you know, I'm gonna put my truth out. And if you challenge it, whatever person, you hear what I'm saying? Like if you're gonna challenge it and cite me and cite my friends or whatever, then like, cool, do that. But like do the work too. Cause I'm like, I've been doing the work.
Yeah.
Since high school.
Man,
you know?
Yeah, I didn't realize the reach of Télé-Louisiane. That's pretty awesome,
huge,
man.
Yeah.
So were you at all shocked? I mean, you just said like it still kind of blows my mind. But were you at all shocked at the level of interest that was still here? Because, you know, I've had to kind of seek out some of this information, like it's about the culture and all these like Louisiana cultural things. And so I'm always fascinated by people who are like living, breathing it, and trying to educate people and put it out there. Were you ever surprised by the engagement that you were getting, or did you know that there was an audience to be reached?
I knew that there was some interest, and I knew that there was an audience, but there definitely was a point. It was like, dang, bro, like 1 million people, like, dang, bro, 2 million people, you know. But we always knew the interest was there, and I think the biggest shock was like, are we actually going to be able to pull this off and make it something that's sustainable? You know, that was always the question. We knew people were interested because, like you said, there's every restaurant is named Cajun this, everything is named Creole that. Everybody's trying to start their own jam. Everybody's like, you know, like people are doing it. There's a new Zydeco band like every day. There's a new Cajun band like every day. You know. So it's like people are fans of it, and you know, there were festivals popping up, like newer, like, you know, Louisiana Cajun Creole culture centric festivals that are popping up. People are trying to bring boucherie. They have successfully like bought boucheries back and like all these things. So it's like we knew there was interest, but now it's like, let's put some systems, let's put some tiers, let's turn this into an ecosystem that can support itself. That's the part that's always like the question, are we doing this the best way possible? And also like when we do find success in it, it's like, you know, it's like a breath of fresh air, and it is kind of a surprise because, like, yeah, we knew people would love it, but are people going to put, you know, their money where their mouth is? Are the big box corporations, are they going to buy in? Are our legislators and our politicians and, you know, city leaders, are they going to buy in? You know,
have you seen buy-in from that level, from like a legislature level?
For sure. Télé-Lou is. We do get a lot of funding through the state through fiscal sponsors, and so yeah, we have seen a lot of good, you know, feedback, but also like buy-in from like, you know, our government leaders, which is great, you know. But it's also because their kids are in French immersion, and you know, and a lot of those people remember, you know, their grandparents and, you know, their predecessors like living the stuff that we're retelling the stories, and so it's like, they remember that only one generation before them, that was their 2 generations before them, they lived it. One generation before them, they would like tell them about it, and like maybe there'll still be some remnants of them living those cultural practices and traditions. And now they were losing it. And we were like, like you're only losing it if you choose to. There's interest, there's people here, and we're slowly proving that there's like economy and sustainability. All you have to do is this. All you have to do is keep your kid in French immersion. All you have to do is go share a Télé-Lou post. Like, you know what I mean? That's all you have to do to start to keep it going. So and people receive that well, and they're doing it.
So you have a media company, you're in media, you look at trends and see kind of where things are going. Do you see the internet, which brings the entire world together? Do you see, you know, what we have currently in media as a net positive for this culture, or a negative? Are you fighting against it because of that access to everyone, not just what we have here?
Whew. I couldn't say, because it's the same way I don't know how many people a day a hammer hurts and how many houses a day a hammer builds. I have no idea. But what I do know is that when I look at a hammer, I'm like, that hammer can do one of two things. It could break a bone, or it could build something, you know? And so when I have these conversations with my friends and my peers and colleagues, and even in the business sense, I'm like, y'all, you have the opportunity to use it as a tool instead of allowing it to be something that hurts you or cripples you, or, you know, it'll only be an obstacle if you allow it to be. So that's how I feel about the internet as a whole. Like, I couldn't say as a whole it's good or it's bad, but I do think that if we convince and encourage enough people to use it as a tool and use it as a positive, it will have no choice other than to be a positive, you know?
Mm-hmm. So how do we, you know, I'm an independent creator. How do people like myself and you and other people who are talking about, you know, cultural things here in Louisiana, how do we, is there a way for us to all kind of unite and pour resources together, or like, how can people access these different touch points? How do I reach people? Besides just, you know, ideally make good content.
Right.
It can't suck.
Good content is like definitely a part of it. And when I say good, I don't think it means having the best gear. I don't think it means having the best editor. I think it means just showing your viewers, however many you have, that like you genuinely care about what you're doing, and that the people, whoever's helping you, whoever's on your team, showing that like they also genuinely care about what you're doing. I think that's what makes good content. Because I've seen awesome productions happen from like, you know, a few iPhones or one iPhone, and it'd be like really, really, really good.
I mean, look at TikTok.
Right. Yeah. You know. And I think the way for somebody like me or somebody like you as a creator, an independent creator, to like really find success, but also like peace in this space, that's like very fast moving, very like volatile at all times. The algorithm's always changing, and like, you know, this is that and the third. They're always threatening to pull a platform off, you know, our market completely. I think it's just collaborating. And you know, my daily practice is I try to collaborate in whatever way I would shoot my shot, shoot a DM online or whatever, and like somebody's stuff. It's helped me as a person, because like I apply that in real life too. And like I'll just see some stranger, I'm like, dang, bro, you know what? That's a fire fit. Like, you know, and just tell them that, right? You know, and ask them questions about like, well, you know, what do you have going on? What is your business? You know, it's networking. And I think by doing that, we kind of create this spider web that like helps support the total weight of what we're all trying to accomplish, which is some version of financial freedom, you know, or financial ease, you know, like a way to make a living, but also a way to like help express ourselves in a healthy way, in a consistent way, and just have access to the things that we want, and see the world changing and going in a direction that we see fit, you know, as this generation and the generations that come after us. So I think the best way to do that is just collaborate. And like, dude, making content is easy for me because like I just share a bunch of other photographer stuff. You know what I mean? I'm like, I love their stuff too. And I'm like, all right, great. I didn't take no pictures this week, and I didn't edit no pictures this week. I'm gonna just share your stuff.
Yeah,
like,
put on a story.
I'm gonna put it out there because you're doing something cool and you're doing something different. And you know, even if there's some overlap, you know, I was talking with this guy last night. We were at a Creole jam, and he was like talking about like doing music videos with Zydeco artists, and he's a still photographer that's like getting into videography. Shout out Creole Visuals. And you know, a guy that I met like just this year, and I'm like, in my mind, I was like, damn, like, I was like, man, well, you know, when I need some money, I could see myself like needing to do a Zydeco music video. But I'm like, nah, bro, like, go do that. Like, you know, like somebody needs to do it, and I'm not doing it right now. And like, even though that's a space that I dibble and dabble in every now and then, and at some point, you know, within the next 12 months, we may be competing, you know, but like never in a disrespectful way. Like, you know, like I encourage it and like, you know, and share his stuff amongst with other creators, and then like that energy is received. And so every time I put something out, like people share it, regardless, you know, they'll share my film even when they're working on theirs or like trying to get, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, no, that resonates a lot with me. One of the biggest mistakes I've made thus far in this journey is oftentimes, you know, with these like you said, these constantly changing algorithms. It's like shooting a shotgun at night, like widespread, and I have no idea where it's going. You know, but I've recently started to do more of that, whether it's collaboration or sharing other people's stuff, engaging and actually like being a part of other people's conversations, not just put my stuff out there and be like, come to me.
Right.
I got to go to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was doing like this little, I guess, spoken word series on my social media for a while. Just like, it was like my version of a word of the day. And it was called Let Me Remind You. And it was just like, these are like my tips that I was really giving myself, but like, you know, sharing it for other people. And one of the main ones, I was like, let me remind you that like you have to be the first. You have to be the first to love, the first to trust, you know, and like you have to be the first to do things. So it's like whatever you want and see for yourself as a creator, as a romantic partner, as a friend, as a colleague, like whatever you see that you want for yourself in that space, you got to be the first to do it. That's the quickest way to get it.
Well, man, I appreciate sharing some wisdom, talking about some of your story. Didn't give me too many hard takes, but you know, you're a businessman. You got to keep things down the down the center. But I'll get you some. I'll get some gotcha questions down the road. I want to get you back on here.
Yeah, bro.
I'll let you come talk some shit.
Yeah.
But before I get you out of here and get Luke out of here, so Luke can go pick up his daughter. Shout out Luke Alexi's in the back.
Shout out to Luke holding it down
on the ones and twos. But just some rapid fire Louisiana based questions.
Whew, all right. This is where you're gonna get me. I'm ready.
Do you dust your crawfish?
What, bro? You start with that? I don't boil crawfish.
You don't boil crawfish?
No.
Okay.
But yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would.
Potato salad in the gumbo or out of the gumbo?
Out the gumbo. I'll eat it. I'll scoop it, and I'll if I feel like it. Depends on, you know, the temperature and the humidity. But I'll take a scoop and then scoop my gumbo and then eat it like that. But like, do not, if you serve me a bowl of gumbo, do not put my potato salad in the gumbo. I want the choice.
On Thanksgiving, do you have a specifically Louisiana dish served, or is it all just the Thanksgiving food that I guess other Americans would?
My grandfather's specialty, I always requested boudin sweet potato pie with cracklings. I get it for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and my birthday.
Oh, I just heard Luke in the background go, oh. Oh, my God. Least favorite street to drive in Lafayette?
Damn. Dude, it's the first two that came to mind is Pinhook and Ambassador Caffrey. But I love Ambassador Caffrey at night when nobody's on it.
Yeah. Pinhook, when it's crowded, it's just so thin.
It's terrible. You know why?
The horse trails?
It's the horse. Is the lanes are still, it's like horse carriage width, and they never changed it.
Wow.
Imagine that.
I feel like we could there's a little room. We could extend it like a foot.
Dude. I think about this one tree on Pinhook. There's that one big oak tree that I just knows has taken out a few cars and probably would take out somebody's car one day. Right by like Bon Ton Grill. And I'm like, if I had to think of a reason why they probably didn't expand Pinhook, it's like, what can go up against that tree?
Yeah, true. That's fair.
You know.
Well, man, Luke, you got any questions? Any Louisiana rapid fires?
Who's the best boudin?
Yeah, who's the best boudin? Okay, we won't say that. We won't say who has the best.
I'll say it.
Oh, you say it? All right, let's go.
I'll say it. Best boudin that I've had. I'm going to go Best Stop for smoked boudin, and I'm going to go Karchner's for the regular degular.
Wow. Man, Karchner's been coming up the past few years.
Them fried rib tips, I go crazy. I will fight somebody over those.
Yeah, man, I grew up with Best Stop, like even in Covington, like every time my dad traveled a bunch, so he would always come back every time he was coming through Lafayette, he'd come back with Best Stop boudin. Man.
Yeah. And I mean,
so I'm biased to them because of that, but I just like the flavor profile.
Me too, because the OG Best Stop is, I mean, it's damn near in Ridge. Like Ridge is like right up the road from there, you know. So that's my stomping ground.
What about Best Crackling?
Best crackling, I couldn't say. I'm not a crackling guy.
Okay.
And then, I'm not a crackling guy. My crackling answer is fried rib tips at Karchner's.
Better nightlife, 504 or 337?
Ooh, 504, bro. I mean, that's such not a fair question. Because I party different ways. Like, you know, I go dancing all night out here. I don't know. I've had better nights in the 337 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Better nightlife, clubbing, bars, restaurants open till midnight on a Monday, 504 for sure.
Yeah. I wish restaurants were open on just during the day on Monday here.
Yeah.
My God.
It's crazy.
It's so annoying. But neither here nor there. Drake, I appreciate you, bud. Good luck with all you're doing. I know you got a deadline to hit, so get you out of here.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
As we wrap every episode, take a look at your single right here, and it could be a word, a phrase, it could be in French. It could be any sort of wisdom that you want to impart on the internet world at large to end this podcast.
All right, my word is, this is a new one. I've never used this one on an interview. Do small, so it just means slow, and sometimes tu dois vivre do small, live the slow way, and you got it. Take your time.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the show. Since you made it this far, might as well give us a like, a follow, a subscribe. Whatever you got to do to alert you that there's a new episode out. Look, it helps us grow, and it allows us to give you the content that, well, you deserve. If you want to be a sponsor, if you want to be a guest, if you just want to berate me, hey, all goes to the same place. info@AcadianaCasts.com. Email info@AcadianaCasts.com. And for more locally sourced podcasts, go to AcadianaCasts.com. Bye.